heartily welcome our Honorable Professor and our home speaker, Kunjal Madam, for this webinar. So, dear friends, again, heartily welcome for this TTC webinar on educationists as the change agents in evolving education system. And our today's speaker, as I said, home speaker is Dr. Kunjal Sinha. So she is not a guest speaker; she is the home speaker. And I thank our honorable provost sir for suggesting me this webinar. So thank you, provost sir, because it was his suggestion that you please arrange this webinar by Kunjal madam. And thank you, Kunjal madam, for accepting it. So I will just briefly introduce कुंजल मैडम because वो घर की मुर्गी दाल बराबर ऐसे कभी कभी रहता है. We never know the introduction of our home speakers. So let me take this chance to introduce Kunjal madam. So Kunjal madam, many of you must be knowing she is the director of continuing education program at our Parul University. She has done her bachelor's and master's in business administration and her PhD in management, and her specialization was in marketing of financial services. I think she is the hardcore academician, and that's why she is here to talk us about the educationists as the change agents, because she has spent 15 years as an academician and 2 years in the industry. She has almost 22 research papers for credit in the national and international journals, and even a book. And she was instrumental in the international accreditation process. So, welcome, Kunjal Madam, and thank you for accepting our invitation. I was just thinking about the title, educationist as the change agents of evolving education systems, and this title makes you think a lot. That's what I feel, and it's a wonderful title because it involves three major terms: educationist, change agents, and evolving education system. So when I was thinking about this, yes, I could see that it is said that only change is the constant. And so the education system. So education system can never be, and that's what we have been experiencing. Our new national education policy, this lockdown, which has pushed us into new normal. So every day it's a change, every day it's evolving. And of course, the teachers are the change agents, nobody else. That's what I. So educationist, yes, the pillars of education system are teachers, and the teachers are the change agents of this system. And I just love this title. So I would request Provost sir, because this webinar, so I would request Provost sir. He has always been an inspiration. Whenever I meet him and I talk to him, every time I get to know new things about him and about education. So he is again the hardcore educationist, and at this age, the energy he has and the ideas he has, they really inspire us. So thank you for being here with us. Thank you for your support, Provost sir. And I request you to please start this webinar, and then I will request Kunjal madam. So basically, the 3 points of today's webinar will be the objectives of education, the three main pillars of education, and the roles and responsibilities of teachers. So basically, we'll be discussing on these 3 points. So, Professor, we would like to hear about your insights, inspirational insights on this webinar.
Namaskar to one and all. I think still so many have not joined, but hope so that in coming time other also are likely to join this. As you said that our today's speaker or resource person is Dr. Kunjal Sinha. So no doubt she is a part and parcel of Parul family, but whenever the person having that knowledge, we should take the advantage of that. And that's why I heard once she was just addressing to SRM then it was the inspiration to me that why we should not take the advantage of her knowledge or what thoughts to our teachers. And that's why I told you to have or to arrange this type of one program under TTP banner. And that's why today we have that webinar where Madam Kunjal Sinha is going to address. And as you said that, she has kept a very good title of that, Change Agent, Educationalist. You see that this Corona has changed everything. It naturally, the thing changed with the time. And as so far the system is concerned, everything is changed. First change, we can see that this seminar is now webinar. We have changed from that only. As so far our blended teaching is concerned, which is converted into a e-learning. Now, so many, rather hundreds of seminar at various level, such type of things are going on. And I can say that for all profession, all business, all everywhere, it is much affected. As a whole, our economy is affected. Our GDP is reduced like anything. But as so far our education is concerned, we have still continued. We take the example of our Parul University, where we have not get disturbed even for a single day. The day on which it was declared the lockdown, by next day we have started by Google Classroom to teach the student, and successfully we can say that we have finished the entire syllabus in that previous semester. Not only that, we have conducted the examination. This is the change, and change we have adopted. As you are not understanding the change, then and there will be a problem. So we have understood the change, we have accepted the change, and being the educationalist, we have just pace ourselves with the rather the need of a day. And due to result of that, even our that first semester, which we have also, first means odd semester, which we have just finished, and our examination is going on. No doubt the new admission are still awaited. Out of that, some of our in management quota we are having, to whom we have taught the bridge courses, foundation courses. But in fact, in short, I have to say that the change which has come, and we have realized that change, and with that change, we are continuing with that, and we have not feel any jerk. You see that our salary is coming on very first day. Our fees is collected almost 80-90% from all the students. The reason is we have given what the student wants as per the change in time. The classroom where physically it is not possible, so we are allowing all the students to learn just sitting at their home. So this is called change, and how we can operate that is of more importance. Today morning in one of the talk I was telling that what will happen to the student, those who are sitting on the last bench, because normally I use the light word that they are the LLBs. LLBs mean they are the lot of the last bench, and they are learning lot sitting in the last bench. They are not properly hearing the teacher, what the teacher is teaching. But sitting in the last bench, they are just having a lot of creative mind. And at the end of that, what I have seen in my 45-year of this career, that those who are sitting in the last bench, now they are became the big figures, giants, millionaire. They have a very good career. So what will happen to such students psychologically? Those who are coming out from the last bench, they are. So my point here to see that there are changes, there are a lot of things to come, and we should realize to that. As if we are not accepted this change, then what will happen is that even our job can be a big question. Our salary is going to be a big question, but we have to make a change, and that's why it is going on. As so far today's topic is concerned, a change agent, how we can change this. I will give an example of that Chinese story, where it is said that in one vessel there was a water at normal temperature where there was one frog, and from bottom the increase in temperature was given by 1 degree. So that frog was not realizing because the process was slow, and at the end of some high in temperature it burned and died. So like that way, when there is a change, and if you are not realizing, obviously you will be the sufferer. I hope so that as the situation change, we should adopt, then we can face with the need of a society, and then whatever we can say that what we want. And as you see that, as other business, other so-called people are hearing that our shops are not working, our business are not working, how we can pay the fees and so. But that part we are not suffering because we are managing by alternative. As you see that we have increased our bandwidth from 1.1 gigabyte to 4.1. We have purchased 500 laptops. We have created the charging points. Like that with the facility as per the change we have adopted, we have provided, and that's why we have been successful in that. And we can claim today that Parul University is the only university in the entire country who is finishing all that in time, spending a lot, even though we have recruited a number of people. Normally, in this situation, there is a retrenchment. But in Parul University, you see the reverse. We have recruited so many staff, so many teaching staff, so that we can run the show. I hope so that this is called the change, realization of change, and this education is going on. So today, how and what the Kunjal madam is going to speak, I don't know. But the purpose of this training is to understand the change, and you keep your mind, or normally I used to say that change is an eternal process and one should cultivate their mind so that they can do best of their ability. With this, my best wishes to the seminar, especially to the TTP, our training cell, and the Kunjal madam for going to deliver the talk on this session. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you, Provost sir, for your really inspirational, thoughtful words. And certainly in future also, we hope to get this kind of inspiration and your support to, of course, everybody in Parul and TTC team, certainly. So thank you for accepting and thank you for coming here. Yes, coming back to Kunjal madam. So once again, thanks a lot for accepting the invitation from TTC, and thank you for a wonderful topic. So now, when we are talking about educationists and evolving education system, what I think first we should know about the objectives. So I would just like to know, basically, do you think the objectives of education are also changing or they are the same? And if you have any presentation, you can just go ahead with the presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. And before I start, let me take this opportunity to thank the university and Honorable Provost Sir, along with the TTC cell, to give me this opportunity for speaking, in front of our wonderful and hardworking Parul University faculty members. So thank you so much for that. And yes, ma'am, when we talk about the objectives, I'll be sharing about it in my presentation in a while. So I'm, over to the faculty members, all of you who are, watching this webinar. To start with, thank you so much for joining, because I understand that the task which is given to me on almost the Saturday evening, wherein you all want to pack your bags and you want to enjoy the weekend. And we are making you sit here listening to the webinar and, talking about the educational policy, talking about the pedagogical sessions. And you said, we have done this enough and let us go home and enjoy with our family. So for that, thank you all the faculty members to be with us today. It's just next 45 minutes you're with us, and then you can enjoy the weekend. So yes, I have a small presentation to show. And I'll request Devyani ma'am to just let me know whether my screen is visible or not. Ma'am, are you able to see my screen?
It started now. It started.
Yeah. So yes, talking about, Devyani ma'am and Provost sir has actually set the base for the next 45 minutes of talk, wherein we are going to talk about faculty members like me and Devyani. Why change agents? Because education itself and bounds in India, there is no question about it. And with this pandemic, there are certain changes which are forced changes, wherein the faculty members had to overnight, adopt certain things because the situation demanded so. With a lot of changes, let us talk about something about how you as educationists can become change agents. Change agents is a big responsibility on anybody when we talk about industry and corporates, and education industry is not, left out. Even in education industry, we really require change agents so that we can move to the next level of imparting education. And teachers and professors in our system, because they are the ones who are the biggest and candidates. So they are the ones who will be able to bring this change. You know, agent with your about few educational institutions. We'll be talking about academics because it's the biggest foundation stone. In academics, we'll be talking about few pedagogical techniques. I'll be only talking about 5 of them, which I personally feel is going to bring a lot of difference. And of course, if we have questions and answers, we can take it later on. So, when we start, let me share with you all that there is no dearth of knowledge. I'm not here to teach, to make you teach related to various pedagogical techniques. Of course, I'll be sharing few of them. But then, like me, you all are into this particular, industry since long, and there is no dearth of knowledge. There's a lot of knowledge which is there. There are a lot of ideas which are there in all the faculty members. The only difference we have to make today, if at all we are able to make that difference in these 45 minutes today, is that, bring in whatever knowledge we have outside and try to start implementing those things. Because ideas, as I said, is no dearth. Yes, implementation is something, which is missing. And that is what we are going to, try and talk today. So we'll be talking about few of the pedagogical tools. You must be knowing all those tools. So conceptually, there is no problem. But yes, how those tools or pedagogical tools can be actually implemented in your respective subjects so that you can make your subject more and more impressive in the eyes of the students. That is what something, we really wish to talk about today. So this is what I will expect from all the faculty members at the end of the webinar, that whatever we have, at least 1 or 2 things, ideas, techniques we take out and we start implementing them when we are teaching to the students. As far as foundation stones of higher education institutions are concerned, I think there are 6, right? Of course, the admission intake is very important because, our students are the major stakeholders as far as our entire system is concerned. Then we have academics and examination. One of the biggest pillar of education industry wherein, we impart a lot of activities, and then we try to assess the students through examination system. So academics and examination is also something which is way too important as far as, and it is one of the pillars. Of course, training and placement, the industry, academia, collaborations, the more you have, the better you are as a university or an institution. Consultancy activities, which basically are carried out by the academicians. And the more research activities, the more consulting activities you have at your university, you as faculty members will be able to bring your own university at a certain level in India and abroad. Quality and accreditation, something which will set the processes of the university and educational institutions. We can't miss it out because ultimately, whatever we do, it is all related to quality. And whatever we do, it is all related to the processes which we are following in the institution. So of course, quality and accreditation is also something which these days we just can't omit it out. It has to go hand in hand in almost all the activities which we are doing at university level. And lastly, skill development. That is what even our new education policy 2020 is talking about. System of education, very good, but along with that there has to be certain level of skill development activities, more of that is what is told by new education policy 2020 now, and a lot of electives and vocationals are going to come. Skill development is becoming one of the most important pillars of the entire education system. So yes, these are the 6 pillars. But because we are talking about academics and pedagogy today, I'll be sticking to academics and pedagogy. We might talk about other pillars some other time. So as far as academics is concerned, there are 3 categorization, 3 type of work which we do related to academics. One, we develop the curriculum. Yes, ma'am.
No, Kunjal madam, after this, are you going to talk about the objectives? Because I would certainly like these things to connect to the objectives of higher education, objectives
Yeah.
of general education and higher education, if possible.
Right, right. So when I talked about pillars, obviously each pillar will bring in one objective for the higher education institutions. So when we talk about quality and accreditation, say for example, each organization, each education institution and university will set an objective for themselves, that what kind of quality they are requiring or they want to achieve as benchmark, and what level of accreditation they want to achieve. So as far as objectives are concerned, as rightly asked by you, ma'am, all 6 of them will have one objective each, and these will be the 6 major objectives with which an higher education institution will function. Right. So, with your permission, let me, talk more about academics, and then we'll be focusing a bit more about pedagogy. So I was talking about academics, and academics, we have 3 major activities which we conduct. We prepare curricula. We prepare the pedagogy through which we really want to impart that curriculum to the candidates and students. And yes, of course, the end of the program and in the mid, we take assessment of the students, right? So these are the 3 major pillars as far as academic activities of any educational institution is concerned. Now, as I told you, related to curriculum, there are a lot of changes are making, but then I thought to share or spend 2 more minutes to talk about curriculum, and then we go to the pedagogy. So the curriculum change which we have seen in educational industry is something like this. So we were having which future we'll have to shift to certain things, and that is how we'll be able to bring this change through curriculum. A teacher centric approach was the one which was used priorly. Now we use more of a student-centric approach, but then we'll have to immediately shift to an industry-centric approach, wherein we are able to eliminate the gap between industry requirements and academia, what academia is giving. So majority of the times when we have placement activities, internship activities going on in any of the university across India, the major feedback which is given by corporates is that the students are missing certain skill set. So if we imbibe those skills in the curriculum itself, we will be able to have a curriculum which is basically industry centric curriculum. That is something which is required by the industry. So the moment the student steps out after his graduation or post-graduation, industry immediately absorbs him or her. We were more focused on information-based curricula. Now we have a problem-based curricula. We teach that. But then in future, we'll have to have the future problem-based curricula, because we'll have to predict pandemic. Nobody predicted. There are certain things which are predictable. There are certain things which are not predictable. But if our curriculum supports the future problems into the curriculum, then I think our, the people who are going in the industry, the future managers and future generation is going to be much, much smarter than what they are today. We were focusing on subject-based curriculum development. We have discipline-based curriculum development, but then we'll have to do an interdisciplinary-based curriculum development also. In our system, we have this compartmentalization, discipline-wise, specialization-wise, but then sooner or later, university doing in certain curriculum will have to go and reach to a level wherein there are interdisciplinary activities going on, there are interdisciplinary subjects which are given to the students, because then you will have the chance of preparing the candidate in from all 360-degree angle, that is holistic development. We were having uniform curriculum. We are now having specialization-driven curriculum. We also have elective-based curriculum, which needs to be focused more in future. and local approach, national approach, global approach, which with digitalization, everything is, becoming one, and we will have to have the curriculum which is giving an entire global approach to the students, so that they are able to work in the field which is more and more challenging. So a bit about curriculum, as I said, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Kunjal madam. So yes, the whatever you have shown in the previous slide, it's very close to the new National Education Policy, National Education Policy 2020. We are expecting interdisciplinarity and multidisciplinarity. We are expressing. We are expecting global. Minister is saying also. So Atmanirbhar on one hand and being global on the other hand. So yes, I could easily connect to what you are saying, and I'm sure that our teachers are also getting connected to this. So yes, you can go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, so that is why I've written near future, because it's not far. In
True.
few months down the line, we will have all these things, in our curriculum, which will make the education system much, much stronger.
Certainly.
Yeah. So coming to pedagogy, which is the major. When somebody asks us that what are the pedagogical methods which we are using currently, of course, I've mentioned just 5 here, but then there will be many others which the faculty members, I'm sure, are using. So these are the pedagogical methods which we have been using since ages. But trust me, the future is going to be very, very different as far as education is concerned. And that is the reason this kind of webinars, wherein we are able to talk with the faculty members like us, that you have to be the change agents and you have to bring in newer and newer. There's just 5 techniques today which I feel are the new normal of pedagogy. These are the 5 pedagogical techniques which I personally, as a faculty member, believe in. And it is going to be a bit difficult for the faculty members, because it is not a work which just happens like a magic wand. It's not like that. Faculty will take years together to develop a blend of what we are going to talk about today. And I'm sure many of the faculty members must have started that also. But these 5 things, I think, there are more also. Yes, we can talk about more techniques also. But if you are able to make blend in a very nice way related to all these 5 pedagogical techniques, I think you as a faculty member will be able to take your subject to the next level, wherein, like Provost sir was telling, that there were other class students also who were sitting in his classroom. So that is the level we want to reach for all the faculty members, that even if they are not students, not your students, not your subject students, not your specialization students, still they want to come to your class. And that's the magic which you can create by blending all these techniques. I just talk about all 5 of them one by one. So the first we have is competency-based learning. Competency-based learning is going to be a bit difficult in the kind of educational system we work in. So the implementation becomes a bit difficult, but yes, at class level, so if you say that, we want to implement a competency-based learning model across the institution or across university, yes, it is going to take time. But if I, request the faculty member that if you're able to do, limited to your class. So if you have a class of say 60 students, 30 students, 70 students, of course, this activity can be taken up, and the faculty will be able to do wonders. Competency-based learning model generally talks about, imparting learning based on the competency of the student. Not all fingers are same, and in the similar manner, not all 60 students who are sitting in your classroom are same. They all are different based on their competency. And that is why, a faculty who imparts a certain subject to the students, it becomes extremely important competency, because unless and until you're not knowing the competency level of the student, you speak minutes, you come back, again you go in the next class, again you speak for 50 minutes, 60 minutes, you come back. This goes on for 30-40 sessions, and you feel that I've done enough work, but then they are different, and might be there are students who have understood it wonderfully well and they can implement it also. There will be category of students who will fall in the moderate level, wherein okay, they've understood and they can write in exams. And there will also be category of students who said that what has happened I've not understood, and the student will come to you and ask for 10 questions for the exam. So yes, of course we have all levels, but levels students and try to develop certain pedagogical technique wherein the learning is imparted in that manner. Now you will say, madam, please talk something which is doable. This is something which is not doable, but we'll have to make it doable. Why? Because see, what industry is doing is industry is using this competency model when our students only go in those industries and work, and industry then say achanak that we use this competency model, and we will assess the competency level of each and every candidate, and then we will do the performance appraisal, and then we will pay the student accordingly. There are certain students who do wonders, there are students who are able to do average, and there are students who are not able to perform, and then entire segment of happening. And my friend has also done masters, difference which the industry is considering. Competency based learning, if we start, our students will be grooming themselves in such a manner from day one that when they go in industry, they're not getting that cultural shock, what is this happening, but then they are grounded and they know that this is what is going to happen with them, and what they are doing is they are working based on this kind of models from day one. Obviously, when students come, they will not know, and hence it becomes our duty as faculty members to communicate all these things to our students, right? Let me go to this second model. Ma'am, shall I go to the second model?
Do you have, or can you suggest any rubric kind of structure for competency based mapping? So what parameters do you think a teacher, so yes, as you said, it's an elaborate process and it will take some time, but to begin with, just to have some hands-on immediate kind of competency based learning, can you just suggest few parameters to teachers wherein they can just prepare a very brief, short rubric kind of a thing to classify their teachers, basically, their students, basically?
Right. This is a very nice question, ma'am. Practically, we can, to start with, we can have few parameters wherein we are able to categorize students based on their competency. Now, there are various categorization and various kinds and types of rubric which can be made. I'll just suggest one or two, just to give idea to all the faculties who are listening. And of course, we can sit together with the faculty members based on their discipline. We can design a customized rubric and parameters for them. But yes, of course, to start with, one, we being in state of Gujarat, outside, there are language barriers. There are barriers related to communication from day one. And this is a fact which is non-deniable, right? We all know whether the student comes for a grad program or a post-grad program, there are certain level of students which come, students with good communication skills, students with average communication skills. So that is one parameter wherein you can categorize the students. Second parameter is usually used since ages is based on their percentage or marks or grades which they have. And there are certain competency parameters which can be used discipline wise. As I told you that those discipline models and rubric, we can sit together and we can separately make it discipline wise for the faculty members. But yes, the model can of course be used to start with at class level, and then there is no limit to using it, right?
Thank you, Quintal madam. Thank you for this suggestion. That certainly we will sit together and will certainly create a basic rubric to begin with, which will be helpful and probably uniform, universal for all the disciplines. And then there might be some slight changes as per the disciplines and the requirements. But certainly we can just prepare some basic model which will help our teachers. So certainly we will go for it. Okay.
Surely, yeah, surely, ma'am, we'll do that. Let me go to the second, pedagogical technique, and let me very frankly, tell all the faculty members that blended learning is going to be the need of an hour. It is the need of an hour, and we will not be able to run away from blended learning. See, this pandemic only has taught us forcefully that there is something which is known as blended learning, which we will have to adopt. So what we have also done, as university, you all know that we are running the theoretical sessions online, and we are waiting for students to come face to face, and then we are going to impart all the practical knowledge. Of course, we have created virtual labs, but still we are waiting for students to come to have those practicals face to face. So this is my point, why this arrangement is done because of pandemic, and the arrangement is more or less a little forced one. But in future, the entire structure of courses which will be prepared by universities, those structures are basically going to be, related to blended learning. So when we talk about blended learning, it's a blend of various things. 4 of them are mentioned here. Members, one face to face, we all know about it, the most traditional one which we have been using since ages. Virtual classrooms, now we know about it since last 4-5 months because of COVID-19. And we have done wonderful job as far as functioning of virtual classrooms are concerned. But yes, virtual classrooms, one-to-one coaching is something which will be necessary, because see, if we are using competency-based model, then one-to-one coaching will come into picture sooner or later, right? And the last one which I've mentioned is self-paced learning. We hardly, go for self-paced learning. The only self-paced learning we do these days, or we used to do in past, is that this is the case study of 4 pages. You read this case study at home, come back and we will discuss the case study. So that is the model of self-paced learning. But otherwise, in future, the model of self-paced learning is going to be altogether different, wherein, we will have a lot of e-content which can be shared with the students, material which can be shared with the students on platforms, on virtual platforms, and that is slowly and gradually going to be the normal. But not talking about each one of them individually, what I want to share here is, making the entire blend out of it. So say, for example, if I'm teaching a course which is a 60-hour course, I will be deciding as the faculty member or expert of that course that, out of these 60 hours which I'm teaching, how many hours I want to impart face-to-face learning, and for which topics, how many hours I want to impart virtual classrooms, and for which topics, how many or for which topics we really want to go for a one-to-one coaching with the students, and what is that section in my syllabi wherein, we really want to go for a self-paced learning model. So for a 60-hour subject, blending all the methodology together, I think this is going to be adding the spice in the entire thing, rather than teaching students for 60 hours face to face. Blending things together is going to solve many problems in future, right? So this is what I want to share about blended learning. We have, for the information of the faculty members, we have already at our university, because ours is a university which actually believes in futuristic approaches, and that is the reason we have already started using blended learning in few of our courses which we have recently started. And this is what we are doing in those courses. We have virtual classrooms, we have self-paced learning model also, and we will have face-to-face classes also once things normalize. So we've already started using it. The more and more we use for regular courses also, I think it will take the university altogether, at a different level. Right. Yeah, this is something which I really wanted to share with all the faculty, which we call it SOUL, as self-organized learning environment. Now, this self-organized learning environment, the entire concept has evolved with an experiment. So you can see the pic of Professor Sugata Mitra. He an education scientist, and he is the term of SOUL, S-O-L-E, in 1999. Right. What he did was he was undergoing an experiment. The name of the experiment he had given was Hole in the Wall, because that is how he made a hole into the entire thing. Now let me share this half a minute with you related to the experiment which he did. So what he did was he had set up a computer laboratory, computers in the computer laboratory, and in all the computers he had given the internet access. We are talking way back in 1999. So in all the computers he had given internet access. Then what he did was he just made a provision of watching students what they are doing inside. So he asked all the students to go inside, and he told students that they can do whatever they want to do inside the computer lab, and he will be coming after some time, after half an hour, after made this through the student. When output which he got out of the experiment was that students can learn on their own. Candidates can given a chance, and try, if you give them liberty, or the students, they learned, or because there was internet, and they on act point is with reason that most of the teachers feel that it is my moral responsibility to impart each and everything related to each and every point which is written in the curricula, but all the time it is not important. If less the more, that is what it is said, less the more. So you give less and there'll be a lot more things happening inside the mind. Sum up the entire thing,
Kunjal madam, sorry for interrupting you.
I'm finishing this, ma'am. I'm finishing this.
Okay.
So to sum up the entire SOUL experiment and program, if we want to really implement this these days, we as faculty members will have to understand that not all the time students need teachers and professors. Many of the times students need mentors, and we really need to understand teaching and mentoring. So when we are teaching, mostly we are spoon feeding, but then when we are mentoring, we are trying to grow, just giving them hints and glance of certain concepts and things and practical things, and let the student do many of the things on their own. And once the entire process is done in this way, I think that there is a lot of learning happening there. Yes, Devyani ma'am.
So Kunjal madam, thank you for speaking my language. So I keep on telling teachers the same thing, and many teachers tell me, "कि madam, this is not possible. The concepts are very difficult. We have to teach them." तो मैंने कहा अपने students पे भरोसा कर लो आप. Yeah,
Right.
so you have to trust your students. You have to trust their capabilities, and many students. Let me tell you, many teachers have started doing that, and I'm really happy. And they're coming back to me and telling me, yes, madam, what you are saying is right. Our students can think. Our students can do. But that's what I keep on telling teachers. So hopefully, our teachers now will. They are taking it, but when it's coming from you, now it's like adding to that. Second thing was this experiment, hole in the wall. I would certainly suggest our teachers to please read about that experiment. It's a beautiful experiment by Professor Sugata Mitra, and just let me add you that the first experiment he did was for slum children actually, who
Yeah.
did not know anything about internet, who did not know English. Those slum children, they could learn understanding English, internet, so they their own, and that's significance of this experiment. So, if possible, just Google browse about Professor Sugata Mitra and about hole in the wall experiment. That's a wonderful experiment. Every teacher, educationist should know about it. So thank you, Kunjal madam. It had skipped out of my mind for last few months, but thank you for reminding me about that very beautiful, strong experiment. Thank you. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but I thought this is really necessary to share. So I
Yeah.
just interrupted you.
No, you're right, ma'am. And on your behalf, also, I'll request all the faculty members to just read the experiment. The experiment was done in phases, and there were many phases done. And then there were other scientists also who had conducted similar kind of experiments. So the outcome which was there is a series, is a result of series of experiments and not just one. So it will be really interesting for all of them to go through it. One, flipped learning. Now, flipped learning, most of the times understood by, faculty members. You really know what is flipped learning. We will also, see how flipped you're teaching your subjects. But yes, this is what flipped learning says. Traditional classrooms, what we used to do is we prepare all the material, we go to the classroom, we deliver our PowerPoint presentation, we deliver the material which we have prepared. The students will take notes of everything which we are telling in the classroom. The student will be assigned homework in that particular class. The student will do homework at home with their assignments, with their projects, and you'll take the submissions. So this is a traditional way of actually imparting the education. Now, flipped classroom, they say that it's a bit opposite than what you are doing or what we used to do till now. Using Yes, now it is the time for us to switch to the method which is more effective in nature. So flipped classroom, they say that the instructor records the lectures on his or her own. Those recorded sessions are then shared with the students, and the students will listen to those recorded sessions whenever it is convenient to them. They can rerun the recorded sessions in number. They them come back to the classroom. All the practical things which you want to teach them, the application part of it you want to teach to them, is done in the classroom. So it's exactly the opposite what we used to do till now. We used to teach them the concepts in the classroom. We used to give them which they were doing at home and they were submitting it. Here it's a little different. Rather, it's just opposite. That you give your recorded sessions to the students to listen at home, and when they are coming in the classroom, they are coming with their application based solutions, and those solutions are then discussed in the classroom, and that becomes more effective over a period of time, right? We should not misunderstand this flipped learning thing, that we have to give case study to the students to read at home, and once the student is ready with the case study, because again, the students these days, they are used with this virtual thing, they are used with their mobile phones, they are used with Kindle, reading on Kindle, something which we give them in hard copies, it will not basically interest them. So there is a certain to create as far as using this pedagogical technique is concerned. And the last one, but my most favorite, the one which I have personally used in my teaching so far, is gamification. Now, gamification can be two ways. It can be virtual, using a system, or it can be just by playing games. It can be both. This particular, gamification word or terminology was coined by an English programmer, Nick Pelling, way back in 2004. But yes, as I told you, gamification has to be taken in both the ways, one virtual and second offline as well. This is something, I personally feel that if the faculty reaches at this level, wherein if I want to teach something, I can just create it in a way which is way more interesting with for the students. And it's like you are imparting knowledge, and the students at the end of 1 hour, they feel that they have done some activity, but then they won't even realize what they have learned based on that activity, right? So yes, adding games to education is simply the best thing one can do. You will have to work a lot, because trust me, for one topic, if you want to develop either a gamification or a game, you will have to put in a lot of efforts, because I have done that in past. And for one topic, I had to actually think and think and think for at least 6 to 7 most. But once you crack it, then I think it will be the most beautiful thing to do. So this is what I was sharing with you. Rather, it was done in all the corporate trainings which were taken, and altogether a different way of imparting the concept. Industry people, you call students of post graduation and you show them PowerPoint presentation, it's not gonna really work. That PowerPoint presentation can be part of the entire day. Something which is very close to my heart, and I would request all the faculty members to try all the methods. So yes, now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are various faculty members from various discipline. I'll complete in time, not a problem. I'm watching what's the time. So there are various faculty members, seeing this, and you're from different discipline. Now you say, ma'am, in my subject this thing is not possible. In my subject this thing is not possible. So yeah, we are not here to tell you that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So whatever whatever pedagogical techniques somewhere down the line you'll have to just imbibe and you'd start doing it. No, that's not the right way of doing it. There will be certain pedagogical techniques which will suit your subject, your topic. There are few which will just not suit, and you just have to leave them, right? I've made 2 samples here for to just wind up everything. So whatever we have talked, these are the 2 samples, very small samples, but we can do based on what samples are shown here. So for example, I want to teach research methodology, which most of the faculties are knowing or must be knowing because of their research work. So if I want to use or teach research methodology, I might teach research concepts through classroom teaching. Then when it comes to designing the questionnaire, I might. So how to design a questionnaire is recorded by me. It is shared with the students. All the students and candidates, they listen to it, and then I ask that when you come in the classroom, you come with the questionnaire which you have designed practically for your topic, and that's how flipped classroom technique can be used here. And then after data collection, when it comes to data analysis, use competency based. Basically, I'm sharing my experience. This is what I used to do when I used to, teach research methodology. So then when it comes to data analysis, not every going to be at same level. To be very frank, teaching research methodology since last 15 days, each one of them is going to be understanding as far as analytics is concerned. So their competency based model will work, wherein you might categorize the class that at what level of understanding they are as far as analytics is concerned, and then you impart them the right way or the right concepts. I think that's the best thing to do. On the contrary, I've taken one more topic. Say for example, or candidates, stress management might be in corporate training. I might, include the introduction of the concepts, direction through classroom teaching, then develop the strategies of stress in one's life through SOUL, SOLE. Just a small example which I've cited based on two different subjects. Engineering, like this, they can devise for their own subject. Faculty, they can, management faculty, they can. So this is the gist of when mean that somewhere down the line, somebody else is doing, let me also use that technique. No, you will have to understand the concept using for your project. Yeah, it's a little clarity.
There is a question from Dr. Amar Sheth, sir.
Yes,
He is
ma'am.
asking what is the ideal method to grade the students. So probably it's related to the competency-based rubric which we discussed. So he is asking what is the ideal method to grade the students.
Ideal method to grade the students. Are we talking about assessments?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So, see, it's going to be very, very difficult and harsh if I say that we have still not reached that ideal method of assessment. Because if somebody asks me, truly speaking, the ideal method of assessment will be through rubric. But trust me, institutions who are still, you. Because when we use competency based model, then comes the rubric, and then we assess the students through a rubric. So I will personally would like to talk with sir who is asking the question, and I will actually sit with sir to prepare one sample, use these but there are many other methods, but let's not debate on the methods. But so far, I feel that rubric is the right method.
Rubric is the best. Yeah. And as I suggested you, certainly we will prepare a basic rubric which will be uniform, standard kind of a thing which will be applicable to all the disciplines. And then probably there could be some skill-based additional parameters with respect to all the disciplines. So I'm really eager to work on that. So certainly.
Yeah. So we are already 4:32. I will be finishing in next 2 minutes, ma'am. So this is what it is, right? To all the faculty members, I would request to see this. Have lot of knowledge. There is no dearth of knowledge. I started with that and I'm ending with that. That there is no dearth of knowledge. I, Devyani ma'am, Provost sir, we are not here to give you or impart you knowledge. We are only here to tell you that utilizing the knowledge in the right way is the only thing which can be impactful in shaping the future of our students. So many draw that become more and more effective. So I would request all the faculty members very hard working as far as our faculty members are concerned, but just start drawing a nice picture of what you have, what capabilities 1 year, 2 years down the line, after implementing this, you will only feel proud of yourself as what you have done. And lastly, please don't make it another webinar which is another your screen time. Just don't make it like that, because if things will not change, then nothing is going to change. Somewhere down the line we will have to start, and I think today is the right time to start. That's how one should go. So that's it from my side. Thank you to all wonderful faculty members, Devyani ma'am, Provost sir, and the entire university for giving me this opportunity. It is just a wonderful opportunity. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Kunjal madam. It was certainly a wonderful insight and webinar, whatever you have shared, and certainly it's going to help our teachers. Let me tell you that our teachers are, because I'm getting opportunity to interact with at least 8 to 10 teachers per day now, because it's one-on-one discussion is going on. There were some training sessions, and let me tell you, our teachers are wonderful, and they are really, as we discussed, Professor, and you, as you discussed to begin with, that change agents. They have really taken these online classes to their hearts in a good sense, and they are really doing wonderful jobs. The way they are using ICT tools, the way they are using technology, it's really wonderful. And your session today is certainly going to add some sugar to it, certainly. So thank you for adding this sugar, and certainly if teachers need, they will get back to you. We will work on rubrics. So if teachers get this kind of ready-made rubrics, it will help them, and it will reduce their pressure, because they are already have so many things in hands to complete. So we'll certainly help them out, and that will help the university and the institutions as well once we start this competency based mapping. In my last webinar also, I had my friends from KJ Institute Pune, and they're already going for this competency based mapping. So if required, we can take their help also. So again, thanks a lot, Kunjal madam. Thanks a lot, Professor. I think you have already left, but thank you for joining and for information. Because of you, I have organized this webinar today. So thank you. Thank you, Jiten bhai, Brijesh sir, for wonderful technological support as usual. And yes, my wonderful friends, my wonderful teacher, faculties, thank you for joining, and thank you for being these change agents. I know and I trust you. You are the change agents, and you're going to be the change agents in evolving the education system of the dream of our Prime Minister, of the visionaries of our country. So, certainly, thank you for being that two change agents, and keep continue doing that. So, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you.
Have a nice day. Have a nice Sunday, actually. Enjoy your Sunday. Bye.